We are back, Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site, coming to you Wednesdays from 11 to 11:50. Glad to be with you on Facebook Live or on your earbuds or later on the podcast. Thanks for joining us here today. We have a great show lined up here for you today, but before we get to our guests, we want to make sure that everybody knows what we do at the Comenius Institute. At Comenius, we cross three bridges. The first bridge is into college, helping young Christian college students navigate thinking that perhaps they hadn't ever heard before with questions that come up during college years. Grateful to be able to do that and to teach there as well. Grateful to be able to teach with some great colleagues at IUPUI. We also cross the bridge into community, which is what we do right here every week on the radio show. Glad to be invested in that. And what we do in the community is simply introduce Christians to each other who are doing good based on Titus 3:1, 8, and 14. Do good, do good, do good. And then the third bridge we cross is into culture, and we're constantly invested in thinking about ideas that people are concerned about right now, but giving Christian answers to those ideas. So if you go to our websites, comeniusinstitute.org.com, or to my personal website, warpandwoof.org, that's warpandwoof.org, you can find out about all the kinds of things that we do with Truth in Two, for instance. We give one Christian truth in 2 minutes. One of the things that's just come up recently, I delivered a paper on neurodiversity, which was well received. Looking forward to seeing that published. But that kind of gives everybody an understanding of, hey, we're really invested in a lot of different ideas here in culture and very concerned about how Christians should respond to them. But today, we are really grateful to have Sarah back with us, the Central Indiana Realtist Association, which specifically is serving the Black community. And we're grateful to have Dee and Myra back with us again. They have been on the show in the past. I think it was back in March, actually, of this year. It was wonderful to be at your luncheon this summer. Had a great time there. Thank you for the invitation. Grateful to have you back again today. Just kind of give everybody a holler, tell everybody what's going on in your lives, and then we'll get into some questions about Sarah.
I'm Dolores Kennedy. I'm glad to be here again. I thank you for inviting us back to let you know what our new initiative is.
Absolutely. And I am Myra Lillard. We are just grateful for the opportunity. With Sarah, we are just reaching out and collectively participating in the things in the community.
It sounds like you're doing good. It sounds like maybe, you're advancing the tagline for this show. There you go.
Absolutely.
This is really a wonderful thing. And I want everybody to kind of get a backdrop again, for those who may not have joined us in the past, but a backdrop again to what Sarah is, perhaps a little bit of the history, so that once again, people are brought up to speed about what y'all are doing.
We are we're a local chapter of the National Association of Real Estate Brokers, which is the largest minority trade line in the United States. And so we're the local chapter here, and our focus is on building Black wealth, building communities, helping our communities to see a better, educating our communities and seeing a better way of living, building their wealth. And one of our one of our the things that we are really focusing on is building the percentage rate of Black home ownership, which is at 40.6%, which is not good at all. And this is actually lower than it was 50 years ago, which was at 49%. So we have a lot of work to do, and that's what Sarah is about, educating, building wealth in our communities.
Absolutely. And just happy to announce that we again just had a stellar turnout at the Congressional Black Caucus event that was in
DC.
Oh, that was in Washington, D.C.
September.
That was in September. And we initially started several years ago talking about the plight of Black America with wealth, with home ownership. So we kind of rolled out the actual problems that our communities were suffering. And these last 3 years in particular, we've rolled out the solutions plan. And I'm telling you, it has just been a stellar event. we've been able to garner a lot of support, not only in the Congressional Black Caucus, but throughout just getting the word out for young people, entrepreneurs. We had a lot of coverage from the media as well. So just getting that message out and not just saying we have a problem, but these are some of the solutions and we want to come alongside and help. So I'm just tremendously excited about it. And you could probably share a little bit more about that. But it's all in line with what we do with the National Association of Real Estate Brokers. So getting CIRA off the ground 7 years ago, hasn't it? Wow, time goes by so fast. But we have taken several challenges on, including just financial literacy. So we're trying to play a part in any way we can and come alongside and partner with other organizations as well.
One of the things that strikes me as I hear you ladies talk about this is, you talk about the issue of this being a problem in the Black community. Quite frankly, I think this is a problem for all of us. I mean, when I think about this, I think about the opportunities that my neighbors might have, that I might be able to help with, even in the sense that we're communicating about these kinds of things. But when other people's wealth increases, all of our wealth increases. That means for our neighborhoods, it means for our communities, our subdivisions, our streets, wherever it is that we are. And that ought to be something that we really, truly want to encourage across ethnicities, across nationalities, across linguistic differences. Because what is the famous line? When we rise, when the water rises, all boats rise, that kind of thing. There you go.
Amen.
Yeah. So, this ought to be an issue that everybody gets behind and is something that all of us should be concerned about. Certainly that's the reason why we're here today. So in this particular effort that you have upcoming here, this is not really a new initiative, but it's something in terms of a solution that you're going to be offering that might be a different way for people to be thinking about life and about the purchases they make. So tell us a little bit about this house, then the car?
Yes.
Yes.
That is we have a new president, Donnell Williams, that came in that was installed in August of this year. And the initiative that he came in with was the house, then the car. And it was piggybacked off of our 2 million in 5 years, 2 million Black homeowners in 5 years. And so that was to encourage this. And the 2 million in 5 is based on, it's focused on the millennials, but not exclusively, because we find people that are in all age groups that will go out and buy a car before they will the home, knowing that when you pull off the lot, that the value goes down on that car that you just bought. But if you purchase a home, that value does nothing if you're taking care of your home. The value does nothing but go up, and it increases the viability of neighborhoods and things of that sort. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to push that, not going out and buying a car, stay in that old car, get the oil changed and do all of those things, and focus on financial literacy. So on financial literacy, saving so that you can purchase that new home.
One of the things that I think everybody needs to at least hear out loud is the importance of homeownership in terms of sustainability of any family. So you just mentioned, for instance, that when you buy a home, the home will always increase in value. Generally speaking, that's really true, and it's the best place to put your money. But here's the watchword from Scripture. Scripture says that we ought to gain wealth little by little. And buying a house and living in it for 5, 10, 20, 30 years is the best way to do this, little by little.
Exactly. And as I just said, pulling on that car, once you may pay $50,000 for the car, but when you come off the parking lot, it's probably worth maybe 30 or 35. And you still, if you run into something, you still got to, get it fixed and things of that sort. Not to say that there are not things that goes on in the home, but the things that we take care of in the home, it increases the value of that home.
Absolutely. And I think that the way this is rolling out, the house, then the car, is indicative of just really putting that light on consumerism. Just blanket consumerism in the Black community, even more than other minority groups. Our dollars leave our community like that. I mean, very quickly. And so the car is that big picture, but we're hoping that will funnel down so we become more thoughtful in our purchases and what we're striving for, and in learning delayed gratification. As Dolores said, you know, we might have to do a few more oil changes and maybe take the vehicle to the mechanic shop a little bit more, but to move away from the renter consumer mentality to the ownership mentality. And I believe that's scriptural. You know, he says that, you know, we're to be the lender and not the borrower, you know, and the head and not the tail. So we have to give ourselves a chance to get in that position. And it's not like, as you said, that you're going to buy a car, and buy a home and you're going to be rich the next day. It's an asset that appreciates over time. And so I think that mentality just has to shift. We have to have a little paradigm shift there. And we have had a generation that wants to reward ourselves every weekend, you know, or every time we get a paycheck. But I believe that 10% rule, I read a book many years ago, The Richest Man in Babylon. And, you know, and the wise man just said, hey, take care of yourself just a little bit, as you're saying, a little bit over time. Every time you come into something, every time you get paid, just set a little bit aside. So if we learn good stewardship with what we have, then it will help that process and us delaying that gratification with that car before we get the home.
Why is it, do you think, that people want a car? I mean, that's really bright, shiny, brand new. What is that about a car, having a car?
Status.
Yeah.
Status?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But then, you know what? And you find some that are they're couch surfing, but they have a big, beautiful car. Everybody sees a car. Or they're living in their mom's basement, or whatever the case may be. And that's what we're trying to get people out of that mentality, is to wait on that car, because it'll come eventually. And in saving for it, you know, I remember many, many years ago when I used to think when you saved, you had to save $100 a week or you couldn't have a savings. But you know what? It could take $5 a week or $10 a week, just starting, and maybe get to the point where you can not only purchase your home first and be able to sustain that home, but then later on, after a while, be able to get that car. And it may not be a brand spanking 2020 or 2019. It may be a 2005 or 2006, but it gets the job done.
Yeah, gets you from point A to point B.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was telling Dee before you arrived, Myra, that my wife drives a 20-year-old vehicle. And it's a standard shift, which means that no millennial will ever steal it because they can't drive standard shifts. But beyond that, you know, our view of cars is it gets you from point A to point B. Yeah, okay, it's scratched up and dented, but who cares?
Yeah.
We just want to get to where we need to go. So that's the reason why I asked about why is the car important, and your comment about status is important there, which is really an internal attitude.
Absolutely. And I think that resonates more in the Black community. You know, our counterparts, you know, white America is actually looking more green. You know, they're looking at walkability counts. So they're, well, you know, they want to be in a neighborhood where they can walk or ride their bike to where they've got to go. And so if that means a grocery store, or more importantly, the job, they want to position themselves that they are focusing in on that which is most important. Number one, health. If you're walking, chances are you're going to avert a lot of, you know, health issues. And then number two, being able to walk or ride your bike or moped, that means that you can get closer to work and you have more money to buy a house.
Yeah.
So our families, whereas before, we come from a rich heritage, and this is all newer type of thinking. Our parents and grandparents were more conservative. We always knew that you had to, whatever your hobby was, you needed to turn it into a job, something money making. That entrepreneurial spirit was alive and well way before the civil rights movement and all those movements that we benefited from. But we've lost a lot along the way. We've put emphasis on the car. We've put emphasis on higher education, and I am a huge proponent of higher education, but not at any cost. So it's the car that's a real issue for us. Okay. Higher education is a real issue for us in that we shouldn't be saddled with $50,000 to $100,000 in debt.
Amen.
Okay. So there has to be a better way. So the thoughtfulness behind the green footprint, behind the walkability platform that so many millennials now try and follow, we need to spread that to our thinking as well. It says, hey, you know what? If we can delay the car, then we take all that money and we start, or a good portion of it, and funnel it into savings so we can plan for the future. So our white counterparts are buying homes when they're 24, 25 years old. So we've got a 10-year delay or 20-year delay. And even other minorities, because I'm part of the thing that I do is evaluation. So I'm in homes all the time where I see immigrants coming in, and they it's like hotel happy. They have maybe 2 or 3 families living with them. And what they do, they build each other up. They help each other save, because you're not having to come out individually with $1,200 for a home. They say, let's take that $1,200 and let's all split it. So we each get a chance to participate. So they kind of have that staggered plan. So then the one that first in, first out type of thing. And then they're able to buy a home, and then they do the same for another family, and it goes on. And I've seen this for over a decade, actually more. And so these are things, and even the African community. I have many friends from Nigeria. They practice the same kind of standard in terms of community. So there's so many things that we can relearn.
Sure.
That will help us. And just a simple thing of going to community college for 2 years. How about that?
Yeah.
So the conversation is getting started with the house, then the car, but other things that kind of spills into so many other things in terms of rethinking.
Yes.
And there's a way that we can accomplish higher education, which is so needed, but we can do it more affordably.
One of the things that strikes me about this, and maybe we could talk about this in the second segment, give you a little bit of time to consider a response to this, but it strikes me as you tell me about your grandparents who, in your words, were more conservative, and by that, you don't necessarily mean politically, you mean by that more economically, perhaps even socially.
Absolutely.
So my question then would be, okay, what happened in between your grandparents and now? And what has taken place so that we're in the spot that we're in at the present time, where you're needing to do all of this free education kind of thing? Maybe that's something that we can jump into in the second segment. We've got a couple minutes here just at the end of the first segment, though, and one of the things that I think is important for everybody to hear is your investment in the community yourself. So tell everybody how long you have been doing what you do, and not your house number or anything, but where you generally live in Indianapolis.
I have been in the real estate business 26 years. I have been an independent for 20 years, and I lived in the the downtown Old North Side area is where I live. And going back on what you just said, both of you, I noticed that when I moved, when I first started real estate, I found that a lot of people were moving north into Fishers. And I thought, I wonder, but then I would see a lot of my white counterparts. They were moving into the inner city. They were walking to work. They were catching the bus to work. They were doing that. And I'm thinking, we're going to be buying all the gas and they're going to have the good health. And you're thinking those things. You may not say it out loud, but those are things that you're thinking.
Sure.
But as I said, I've been doing this for 25 years and 26 years. And what I've found that this is more of a ministry, because I love to see that first-time home buyer. I love repeat clients. I love them. But that first-time home buyer, just having that experience and knowing that I made it. And that's how they look when they're sitting at that closing table. I did it. I actually did it. And a lot of times these are people that didn't think that they could ever get to this point. So that, just knowing that, and that's what I feel like this is a ministry for me.
Yeah, and I also live in the, near downtown. I'm in Meridian Kessler. So I've always kind of wanted to, be in the urban center. And again, I have to piggyback off of Dolores. Although I'm primarily, I do have a broker's license, but 99% of what I do is valuation. And one of the joys that I have is letting people know about value and not getting excited about, what they see, but counting the cost and then projecting out and seeing, let's just kind of see, what the patterns are, so we can see what a 5-year plan is around this particular neighborhood, and that it's worth making that investment and some of the things to do to enhance that investment that you do have. So it's a joy to serve. Of course, we're practitioners, but it is a ministry because, again, I'm so thankful for you because you center everything back in the Word. And one of the things that always pops up when I get a chance to share and when you see the need is that the Bible says that my people perish for lack of knowledge.
There you go.
And so we do our very best to lay it out there, and we have our colleagues that has home and finance showing programs. We try and participate as much as we can to get the word out in the different aspects that the community has a need at.
Great. Thank you, ladies, for this first segment of our show. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.TV at the Cool Groove site. Looking forward to the second segment, chatting again with Dee and Myra about more of the issues in the Black community, specifically in the Realtist Association that they work. We're going to take a one-song break. We'll be right back.
You were saying, okay.
You're hiding behind this mic here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
So I am really interested in this, what happened, in the history of the Black community. And I'm sure HB's got, he's got the big smile on his face over there.
No, really what happened is that the infrastructure of the African American community came from your middle income jobs, which were your factory jobs. And most of our grandparents, at least, they were able to go to work 40 years and retire with the handsome pension that the GMs, the Fords, the Chryslers, the Lillys provided. And those jobs aren't around anymore. And so we've got a huge gap between the professional Black person and the person who is uneducated who has to settle for your factory job, which means you got bad credit out the gate, which means you probably have children. All of these things are in a bubble. Low income, more babies, the court system, the prison system. You got it all inside the bubble of low income. And so therefore the energy to buy homes now and the resource to buy homes now just isn't there for a lot of younger African Americans, because they're starting out behind the 8 ball. They're starting out with more credit problems than the average person. And to me, and they can probably say it better because they take credit out, but just from working in after school programs and watching the dynamic of how low income affects every spoke of reasons why you can't go buy a house.
Right.
It's almost inside that bubble.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know too if you think that this is also part of the issue when the welfare system and the Great Society came out in 1964. Was there a problem when the law said that the woman in the home had to be without a man? There couldn't be a man.
Absolutely. That was what, as the old adage goes, everything that glitters is not gold. And so I think that was one of the gotcha moments, not only for Black America, but I think it affected everyone. Because we look at the single parent household, we're devastated by it, over 70%. But marriage has just gone down, in terms of percentages for everyone. But we got caught up in there big time.
I wonder if you might want to speak to some of that as well and address those kinds of things, because I think in some ways, I think people need to know a little bit about history to get a sense of why are we at the place we're at today.
Oh, you got a dynamic too, just like she's mentioning now that we're in our head of household, how it, the male, that did this whole role of what we were taught, how I was taught to treat my lady, doesn't apply today because now the lady holds the purse strings. She holds the purse string. There's a different dynamic in what most men were taught. Here's what your manly duty is, so to speak. So there's so many fractures in this thing that lead to why that you could pick a topic for 25 weeks and still not cool.
And I think because we've gotten to the point where the woman has taken the lead, we've caused men sometimes to just sit back and wait for her to bring the paycheck in.
Because we're hunters. We're natural born hunters.
And then we wait for them to bring those paychecks in, and we women feel like, okay, at least I have a man here. You know what? And we've got to get out of, women have got to get out of that mentality, and men have got to step up and take their rightful place.
You talking about a pendulum swinging both. Boy, that's a dynamic.
But I mean, because I've seen men that have said, I'm not working at McDonald's. Well, what's wrong with McDonald's? I see so many single women that are at McDonald's, working to take care of 3, 4, 5 babies that they've had by this man that won't work.
Now we get back to the generational problem of not having a male in the household to raise young men, teaching them that you do what you have to do regardless. So we've got about a 30-year gap in there now where this dynamic is switched, where there are no men in the house raising these young men, and now these young men feel like, I'm too good for that. Well, no, you're not. But a real man said, you can run out there, you do what you have to do.
Even in our neighborhoods, it used to be as we were growing up, there was always kids in our neighborhoods were going and shoveling snow,
cutting
grass and things like that. And now, even last year, I had so much snow up around maybe like year before last, and my sons hadn't gotten there yet. And I said, I remember the time when there were the kids going through the
Just come do
neighborhood.
it.
They'd come and they'd shovel you out. You don't find that anymore. And those were kids that had that, and I'm thankful that my boys did have that, that they were.
Well, good morning, Lois and Bernier. We are on the break. We'll be back in about a minute or so. But you're smack dab in the middle of a great conversation.
How much time we have?
About a minute.
About a minute. You want to get a picture?
Absolutely.
Please. I always ask him to get a picture, because it's important.
I'm just fine with you today, Mark. Usually he's the only pretty one in the picture. Let me get this thing real quick. I get ready to talk as soon as I turn around.
And we are back, Warp and Woof Radio, RadioNext.tv at the Cool Groove site. We are in the middle of a great conversation with Dee and Myra from the Central Indiana Realtist Association. So grateful for the impact that they have on the community. Grateful for your comments, too. Thanks so much for those of you who are watching and are making some comments along the way. HB will tag us in if we need to hear some of the things that are being said. But we wanted to talk in the second segment, at least give a bit of a history, I think would be important for everybody to get a sense of why we are at the place that we're at. We know that these threads are so many and so varied through the fabric of society, but I wanted to ask Dee and Myra specifically about why is it in the first segment when they said that our grandparents were more conservative economically, what's happened to the place where they're at now, where they've got to go back and do the educational piece again. So ladies, if you wouldn't mind, give us some, just, some of the basic points that you would like to mention along the way.
Well, as we were saying before, back in the day, my dad was a Chrysler worker that worked there for 40 years and then retired, and things were conservative. And we were brought up in a two-family home where there were values that, and we knew. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and the husband went out and did the work and took care of his family, and we were conservative to a point. But what we learned was working hard is how you got anything. And my dad was a hard worker, and not only was my dad a worker for 40 years, he did the things, like part-time jobs and things of that sort that brought in money for. So we always knew to work hard. My mother was in house, and she was a hard-working housewife and mother, and she instilled those in things of just being hardworking and being good family people that took care of our families, but also knew the importance of hard work as well. And I think that's where this comes from. And I think as time goes further, as time goes on, a lot of that we're losing because we don't have the two-family homes. And that's not to say that there are not issues, challenges in two-family homes. I'm just saying that not all the time do you find with the woman, I will say this, because with the women, they are the ones that have to keep the families going with working and taking care of the home and taking care of the kids and all of those things. She has always been, the woman has always, and that's not a black thing or a white thing. The woman, I feel, has always been the one that has carried the families more now than before, because I think we had more of the two-family homes. And I think it's a challenge because the woman has so much on her back. She can't raise the son like to be a man, like he could if his father was there to teach him to be a man, to show him what hard work does and what it means to have a family and take care of a family, not just be there, but take care of that family.
And when you're saying two-family homes, do you mean two-parent homes?
Two-parent homes.
Two-parent homes, okay.
I said two-family homes. Yeah, two-parent homes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Myra, from your perspective, how would you respond to this? The why of what was the generational break in the middle of this?
Well, for me, I'm actually originally from Chicago. Started as a two-parent household. My mom and dad divorced. They were both entrepreneurs. He was a barber, and she was a cosmetologist, so they had a all-in-one business. And then she was an interior decorator and seamstress. So they came from backgrounds of hardworking parents that did similar type of things. And so that was the undergirding of them financially. Unfortunately, the marriage broke up. But my mom, she, as a single woman back then, of course, it was very difficult to make it, with housing and finances. So I am familiar with being, I guess, a beneficiary of the welfare system to a degree. But my mom, just like many women that were taking care of their children back then, it was to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So she got assistance as long as she needed it until she got her business going. So she had her sewing machine in the home, and we had assembly lines going, cutting out patterns or whatever she was doing for a particular job. So we learned hard work as children, not only from our dad, but from our mom more specifically as we grew up. And having the mentality that I am going to make this. This is my life. I'm responsible for it, and we're going to make it. So thank goodness that we do have a safety net that our government has set up. We're giving, I think our country, we are based on a spirit of giving. So I think that we have to have that for people just like my mom that needed a little stopgap until she could get over the hump, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so we had that for a very short period of time in our life, but we moved on way past that. We moved out of the projects. And as a single mom, she was able to buy her own home.
Wow.
And actually, that she was actually very instrumental in me actually looking at a career in real estate.
Wow.
Because she became an investor. And again, this was not just a unique situation. We saw that pattern throughout our community. And so when we're talking about the Great Society and this whole welfare, this health that was set up has actually turned to be a detriment because as time went on, people didn't look at it necessarily as a stopgap for that moment. Looked at it as a paycheck, as something, this is, what we have to survive on. And because now you're penalized as a woman for having your man in the home. So now the marriages are dissolved. Marriages with lovers never did get to the point of marriage. And then now, instead of having the marriage and then the children, now we're having children and no marriage. And so it actually became a downward spiral. And back then in the 60s and 70s, you had the state and the city workers actually coming in to check on you and making sure the man wasn't in the household.
Wow.
I remember those knock on the doors. And so that was very real. And so then it becomes inculcated in your psyche, this is how you have to do it. And then over time, it's like, okay, this is an entitlement. This is mine. And it just happens over time, the shift takes place. And the entitlement mentality takes place instead of what can I do? What do I need to do in taking responsibility? So it's not everything, but it certainly was, it played a huge part in our detriment as a Black community. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and the system, as it's called, the welfare system, I think was meant to be a stepping stone. And other people, as you said, they started using it as a paycheck. And this, it was never, I don't think it was ever instituted for that reason. Maybe someone thought of it that reason, but that is the way we should have taken that. This is just for a short period of time, as you said, that your mom did, but there have been people that have stayed on. And because of that, I think that's why we have the men that don't want to take the McDonald's job or whatever that, because they feel like they have somebody that's got a check coming in every month and they can be there for that. So
It's good to get some of the history, and I think that everybody hearing that is benefited by it, just to get a sense of where we've come from. But let's talk now about where we're going. I wanted to make sure that the last part of what we talk about in the second segment is this November 2nd date, and all of what you hope to accomplish here in this particular format, that particular day. So roll this out however you'd like and tell us all about it.
we are having, as we spoke, we have this initiative that is House Then the Car. And what we're doing is focusing on people, home ownership, building Black wealth, or building wealth for people, and that so that we will know that we want to buy the house instead of the car. This workshop is coming up on November 2nd, and it's going to be held at the Faye Picard Glick Center, which is at 2990 West 71st Street. We're going to have a workshop that will tell you everything you need to know, from the idea of thinking about a house versus buying a car, to when you get the actual keys to that house and having that reward feeling, that this, I've done it. So this is what we're doing. We want everyone to come out, and as I said, we will have people that will be counseling for you as well. If you need your credit run, we will have lenders there. What we want you to understand, we're not trying to sell you anything. We want you to purchase your new home. But what we're there is for education, for letting you know that this is what, and it may be that you can't buy a home in 6 months. It may be 2 years, it may be 3 years, but we have people that will walk you through the process, tell you what you have to do or can do in order to get to the point in which you can purchase a home. And then we will have as I said, we'll have counselors there. We will have real estate brokers. We will have lenders there. We will have somebody from the title company will be there. We will have a financial planner that will be there, that will be telling you different things that you can do in order to get on the road for home ownership. We want people to know that they will have all the keys will be there on November 2nd. Any question that you have, will we have someone there to answer those questions? If we don't have the answer, we'll get that answer for you. We want you to know that this is the first of a series that we're going to be doing. And so if there's anybody out there in your church or community centers or anything like that, and you're interested in anything like that, let us know. We would be more than happy to come out, because what we want to do is to give education so that people will know, because if you know better, you do better. And so that's what we're wanting to let people know, that you come out and get this education. And maybe you're a homeowner, and maybe your next door neighbor, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, or somebody needs this information. Come out and get the information and take it back. We will have a wealth of information there for you, and any question that you have, we'll be happy to take care of it. Again, house, then the car. We want to make sure that everybody understand that. We want you to make sure that you're building Black wealth in our neighborhoods, and in our neighborhoods and communities, so that we can make a difference. We want to build the home ownership rate from 40.6%. We want to build it up. And this is what we're here for, is to build this, because we know that there's an issue with it, and we hope that to make a difference in that.
Absolutely. You said that very well. Yeah, just look at it. This is an event as a roadmap for your success. And I'm just excited about it. And although our initiative is the 2 million Black new homeowners in 5 years, we are very inclusive. So whosoever will, let them come.
Yeah.
We're about to get some preaching going on in here. Look out. That's great. Did I hear the place that it's going to be at?
Yes, it's going to be at the Faye Bicard Blick Center at 2990 West 71st Street. One of the things I want to say, there's going to be great door prizes there. The time is going to be from 12 until 4. There's going to be 2 sessions that will take you from the idea to the keys. There'll be 2 complete sessions. So if you miss the first one, you'll be able to get in on the second one. But we want you to come out for a day of fun. We have activities for the kids. We'll have, as I said, we'll have people that can answer any questions that you may have to get, and sometimes people say, well, where do I start? I don't even know where to start. We will tell you where you need to start. Anything. Faye Bicard Blick Center, 2990 West 71st Street, and we will be there. We'll have all kinds of information, and hope to see you there, so that we can share this information, so that we can help build the wealth in our communities.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that if you're not up by noon on Saturday, I don't know what's wrong. So you got the whole morning to sleep in. All right, get out there at noon from 12 to 4. You've got the whole 4 hours there to hit this, and make sure that you and your family participate in this. Now, some of the folks that you have helping you, I'm assuming, are coming alongside you. Banks, we have some bank representatives there.
Correct.
some other representatives that will help in terms of finance, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Yeah, and we will have the whole gambit. And as I said, we will do the progression of the steps. Maybe that's the word I want to use. The steps to homeownership. And we had one of these sessions a couple of weeks ago at one of the Head Starts here in the city, and we took people from start to finish. We told them, what happens when they first get, when they're ready to buy a home, all the way down to the appraisals. Every step of the home buying process we had there, and this is what we're going to do again. The one that we had at Head Start, it was more concise because they were on time limits, but now we will have more time and we can ask, they could answer questions, and we're there to answer any questions you may have. And then after the sessions, we will have people that you can one-on-one. They can do the credit counseling. They can pull your credit to let you know where you are, what you need to do. We have a financial planner that's going to be there, and he's going to be talking to you about how to get started with your financial planning. Where do you start? What do I do? I don't know how to start this. He will be there to start you through that.
Absolutely, and I think that that is excellent that you mentioned that, because a lot of times we don't even have budgets worked out.
Exactly.
So if you are on November 2nd, come and say, hey, I need to actually have a working budget. How do I do that? So we will have the professionals there that will actually guide you and lead the way.
That's such an important issue. And maybe we could end with a couple words on the mindset shift that needs to take place. How do we begin to help people get in their thinking with a different kind of attitude that's going to adjust from maybe what they've always considered, you suggested earlier, an entitlement mentality, to a responsibility mentality? Talk for a moment about how to make that shift. What is it? What's necessary for people to engage?
I think when people realize that something is going to be their own, it makes a difference. Because it's very easy to walk into some place where you have nothing, you don't have no skin in the game. But if you know that when I walk into this house, the lawn is you make sure that the lawn is cut, because it's your lawn. It's not the landlord's lawn. Or when you walk into your home, you know that there's no chipping in the walls and things like that, because these are things that you can do. You can change the colors of the walls whenever you get ready. When you're in an apartment, I believe, I haven't been in an apartment for many years, but I think when you move into an apartment and the walls are white, if you change the walls to pink, when you get ready to move, you got to change them back to white. You don't have to worry about that when you're in your own home. You can. It's not a sense of entitlement, but of ownership. And that makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I just believe that when we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, God did not make a mistake when He created me, that's a starter.
Yeah.
We are all precious, and we have giftings. And so we just have to tap into that once again and say, I can do this. And I can be a good, solid citizen. I can be a good neighbor. I can be a homeowner.
Yeah.
Okay? And when we internalize all the giftings, all the good things that lay resident within us, oh my goodness, the light bulbs go off, creativity goes off, ideas begin to be birthed within us, and all of a sudden now you can see your way through on that budget. It says, okay, I'm working on this because I want that. So we'll begin to be strategic in everything that we do, that we'll get outside of being emotional or reactionary. We'll become planners, and by that, then we can become doers. And so we just we don't have to get in a rush, but one foot in front of the other. I read a book a long time ago, and it's called The Slight Edge Effect. So you just can't go from A to Z, but you can go from A to B to C to D. And it might have some turns and crooks, but that's okay. That's called life. And then that no man is an island. We have to stand as a community. We don't have to look like each other. We don't have to be the same gender, okay? But we have to find like-minded people, people that are going to lift us up and not hold us back, that someone can say, I believe in you, you can do it. And CIRA is certainly an organization that does believe that. We come alongside you and say, yes, you can do this. We did it, and you can too. We're no better than you are, so let's lock arms and let's make it happen. And we'll be with you and guide you every step of the way. And as Dolores said, if we don't have the answer, we can find somebody that does.
There you go. And this is all because we've been made in God's image, and we bear these gifts because He's given them to us. And once again, ladies, thank you so much for sharing with us this, not only the wealth of information, but your lives. I mean, the lives that you've lived together. I mean, I'm thinking about 50 or 60 years perhaps between you in terms of professional backdrop to this. And so all of those of you hearing this, maybe later on you're thinking about this, hearing this on the podcast, these ladies have a wealth of information that's huge, and they're going to put in front of you people who have a wealth of information. All of this on November 2nd. Tell us the address one more time, Dee.
2990 West 71st Street in the Fay Picard Glick Center. 2990 West 71st Street. It's about maybe quarter of a block from the corner of 71st and Michigan Road.
There you go. We're looking forward to seeing you all out there. Thanks ever so much for sharing with us yet again this week. We'll be back again next week with another guest. We're actually going to be talking about a fellows program in Indianapolis, a very interesting and new endeavor for millennials 25 to 40. And until then, thanks ever so much for joining us. You're listening to Warp and Woof Radio. We'll be back again next week.